Well, yesterday was certainly a hectic day on the political scene in both Alberta and Canada. An Alberta independence petition was quashed, but it looks like a pipeline deal will be signed. Here to break it all down is Dave Naylor, chief editor of the Western Standard. Welcome back, Dave.
Hello, Jeanette.
Good to have you. Okay, let's start with the petition on Alberta separation that was submitted by the group Stay Free Alberta. They had gotten just over 300,000 signatures. I think it was like 301,000 or something. Submitted it to Elections Alberta. Looked like everything was tickety-boom. Still had to go through the courts, but it was squashed by a judge.
Yeah, a whole bunch of native bands filed or got an injunction to stop the counting of the independence ballots. And a judge ruled yesterday that against the petition and quashed it because the judge said the organizers of the petition did not consult Indigenous communities enough. So that, obviously the independence people were not happy about it, but they expected it. Mitch Sylvester told the Western Standard that they've already been working on an appeal for 2 weeks. And it also calls into question Corb Lund's petition to try and stop the coal stuff in the Crow's Nest Pass. He certainly didn't do any Indigenous consultation. So, is what's good for one petition is good for the other? I mean, should Corb stop riding around on his horse getting signatures? I mean, I guess you need to be a lawyer to answer that one. But I mean, there's now been more than 700,000 Albertans that say they want to vote. There was Tom McLukasic's petition to stay in Canada, and there was the Stay Free Alberta to separate from Canada. So it's going to have to come down to the Premier just calling it herself, Jeanette. I don't think she's going to ignore 700,000 names. I don't think she's going to ignore the 300,000, which were a good chunk of her party. Keep in mind that I think 55% of UCP members support independence. And for her to, at this point, not go ahead with a referendum could risk putting her leadership up for grabs and tear the party apart.
You mentioned Corb there. Obviously, apples and oranges because he's on the side of protecting the environment, which obviously the Indigenous people would be too. So I don't know if it's exactly the same, but getting back to the independence thing, you said they've been working on it for 2 weeks already, so they expected it. So, if it can't be appealed, where do they go from here?
Well, it can be appealed.
Okay.
I guess depending on what side of the fence you sit on, that's either good news or bad news. So the Stay Free Alberta people are going to appeal, and Premier Danielle Smith is going to appeal. She says that she disagrees with the verdict, and she says there's some errors in law in it. But, the pace of justice does not move swiftly, Jeanette. It could take months and months and months to even get an appeal heard. And by that time, everybody was sort of focused on October 19th when Albertans will have a referendum vote on various issues. And the thought was that they were just going to put the independence vote and tag it along there. But if they both appeal, if Danielle Smith does not declare a vote by herself, then it puts the whole October 19th date into question.
Interesting. Okay, let's discuss Alberta's relationship with Ottawa now. So we all know that Premier Danielle Smith recently visited the Prime Minister in Ottawa to discuss the Memorandum of Understanding about building a pipeline. Now the PM will be returning the visit. Carney will be in Calgary tomorrow to meet with Premier Smith to update this pipeline MOU. So how are Albertans reacting to this, Dave?
Some of them not overly well, Jeanette. It's based on the reported deal is that Alberta has settled for a $130 per metric ton carbon tax. And its negotiations have brought forward. That was supposed to be 2050. It's now going to come in at 2040. And the people are screaming that, Alberta has given up sovereignty. What happens on Alberta land is, in terms of resources, it's a provincial matter. And to now have an Ottawa carbon tax placed on Alberta's resources is seen as just another, part of Ottawa trying to stop any resource growth in Alberta. Now, the Prime Minister and the Premier are going to gather tomorrow, probably at McDougall Centre, and they're going to sign a new MOU that brings forward this carbon tax, $130 a ton, but it's taking no steps towards a concrete building of the pipeline. We have no proponent, we have no route, and the carbon tax is going to make it even tougher to get a proponent. Because any company that's going to be coming in to build this is going to have to pay billions and billions of dollars in carbon tax. So what's the incentive if you're a pipeline builder? And I think that's why we haven't seen any proponents come forward yet. Danielle Smith has said they're going to have a proposal ready to go next month. So I think some of her officials are going to be burning the midnight oil in the coming weeks to try and get things in place.
All right. More specifically, what are the details of this MOU? If it's not like Prime Minister's got his signature on it, therefore a pipeline is going to be for sure built. It doesn't look like that necessarily.
No, it's all airy-fairy stuff. The first one that was signed a couple of months ago was that, okay, their officials are going to talk to our officials, and we're going to try and do stuff with the environment. We're going to do stuff with the carbon tax. We're going to do stuff with the carbon capture projects and stuff like that. So the only thing Friday's signing is going to advance is the fact that it looks like they've reached a deal on the carbon tax. But there is all that other stuff that still needs to be done, carbon capture and route. And interestingly, there were reports that Mark Carney is ready to designate any pipeline project through BC as a project of national interest, which means it doesn't care what the Indigenous groups say, it's going to be built. But that's going to lead to just a series of road blockages and train blockages, and it's going to cause chaos in BC.
I was going to ask you, what about the Indigenous groups? And once the PM signature is on it, is it necessarily a done deal? I think, like you're saying, it's going to wreak a lot of havoc.
In law, theoretically, it's a done deal. But you remember the TMX and various other pipelines. You had all these wacky hereditary chiefs that have had nothing to do with their band for years, but being paid by American activists to hold all these protests. The Wet'suwet'en stuff comes to mind. So it's going to be a god awful mess, and it's going to take a lot of stiff upper lip and to get it going, and then to deal with the Indigenous issue.
Okay. Well, speaking of a god-awful mess, moving on to a disturbing scene out of Red Deer this week. So a 14-year-old girl was swarmed and beaten by a pack of teens. Horrifically, the incident was video recorded and has gone viral on social media. Dave, what happened here, and what's the fallout been?
Oh, it's one of the most disturbing videos I can remember, Jeanette. It shows this poor girl laying on the ground, and she is subjected to repeated kicks to the head, kicks to the face, wrestling style, elbows to the face. And the crowd just looks on. They do nothing. And then they finally knock her unconscious. They drag her into a grove of trees and leave her there. And of course, nobody would have known anything about it, but one of the pack figured, okay, I'm going to videotape this and put it online. We grabbed it, and the outrage was immediate. The girl's family put up pictures of her in her hospital bed and provided updates on how she's suffering. There were 2 GoFundMes set up, and they did very well, and they exceeded their their total that they were looking for. RCMP moved swiftly and arrested yesterday the 2 main ringleaders, 2 14-year-old girls. 2 14-year-old girls now facing aggravated assault charges. One of them facing an additional charge of choking. So very, very serious charges. Apparently, one of the bullies even kept the victim's glasses as a trophy. So this has spread like wildfire amongst local high school kids. There was a bomb threat at the high school yesterday. But there may be a little bit of good coming out of it, because there has been a rally scheduled for tomorrow in front of the Red Deer courthouse. Just an anti-bullying rally, for lack of a better term. So, high school kids are apparently going to gather there, wear blue ribbons or blue shirts, and just show their support for this poor girl. But it's it's awful to look at, and you just wonder, where are the parents of these kids, and actually, where are the parents of all the kids that were watching? Why haven't they induced values into their kids that, hey, I'm going to try and stop this?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, kids being the way that they are, of course, they want to videotape it and put it up online. And
Yeah,
much to their surprise, that's what made them help them to
yeah,
get caught.
yeah. I mean, how stupid are you to be beating up a girl and having your face seen in the video, and not realize, or might want to shout out at that person, hey, don't videotape this, or we're
No.
all going to get into trouble.
But
But
more than that, I can't believe that kids that young ladies, which they're not ladies, but
no.
can even do that to another human being, or that they would know those kind of moves.
No, and what those girls are, well, we can't even use the name on TV, Jeanette, but at least they face serious charges, so we can hope, and that's all it is, hope, with our justice system these days, that they are severely dealt with, and they get a custodial a term, and they get some counseling, and hopefully move on from this to become productive members of society. But the poor girl who is the victim is going to live with this the rest of her life, and no doubt she will also need counseling, to be able to deal with it, and to be able to deal with the trauma. You look at her poor face, and it was just one big bruise, just terrible.
Oh, that's so awful. We are about out of time here, but really quickly, some good news for coffee lovers. Not necessarily me, although I love me a good iced frappuccino. But Dave, it looks like Canadians will have a new place to get a cup of coffee and a donut.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker either, Jeanette, but Dunkin' Donuts has announced they are going to come back to Canada. They were here many years ago, and then consolidated and left the country, but they're now coming back in with opening up hundreds of stores. And to be honest, I think it's the result of a decline in what Canadians think of Tim Hortons. Lots of horror stories on social media about dealings inside Tim Hortons and how their quality may have gone down. So Dunkin' Donuts says, hey, we got an opportunity here. Let's go in and show them how to do it.
Right, and hopefully a lot cheaper than Starbucks.
Yes, well, them and it'll be them and McDonald's and Tim's on the lower end,
Right.
Starbucks and your neighborhood coffee shops on the high end.
For sure. Dave Naylor, Western Standard Chief Editor, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
You bet. Have a great long weekend.